This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Jackie O and you're listening to Militantly Mixed.
Yo, this is Rashani from the Single Simulcast. And when I'm not making you laugh or making up parody songs, I'm kicking back, listening to Militantly Mixed.
Hey y'all, welcome to Militantly Mixed, a podcast about race and identity from the mixed race perspective. I am your host, Charmaine, aka MixedGirlMane, and this is episode 64. My life did go back to normal a little bit. My guest that was visiting last week went back home. I also had another friend in town that same week, so it was a lot of going places and seeing people and a lot of social interaction, which was quite a bit for me right now, given that I am dealing with some social anxiety. But it was an awesome week. I just had to record my last intro in my car in the parking garage because I had no private space to record it, which is why I need a studio so bad. Hopefully 2020 studio space is gonna be a thing. But yeah. Okay. So life went back to normal a little bit. It's settled down. I got my space back. I'm recording my intro in the wee hours of the morning and we're all good. Life is a little bit chaotic. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know what I got going on. I was passed over for a couple more jobs, so I am in a very desperate situation of looking for work and not finding it. I was passed over for something both well at my skill level in executive assistance, and I was also passed over for a minimum wage retail job for not having enough experience. So, life is really gross right now. All the money is gone, and luckily a friend of mine stepped up to help pay my rent this month. I cannot believe I'm saying that on a recording. It feels awful and great at the same time. Great that I have a friend that was looking after me like that, and terrible that I'm in a situation that has to happen. So yeah, life is really tough right now, but at least I got one more stay of execution and hopefully can find something in the next couple weeks to so that I don't have to worry next month again about where I'm living. But success on the Patreon side, we did hit the $200 goal in September. So we are currently at $203. We are moving on to the $300 goal by the end of October, and we are $3 on the way there. So $97 more and we will hit the Patreon goal for October. For those of you who have just only recently joined listening and kind of don't know why I'm talking about all this kind of stuff on the show, at the beginning of the summer, I unexpectedly lost a job, and it has been very difficult to find a new one. I'm over 40. I've had an employment gap that has to do with something I'm not legally allowed to discuss, so it makes it very difficult for me to look for work. I really love my podcasts and I just want to do this full time, but as of right now, I'm not making enough money on Patreon sponsorship to do it full time. And I've gotten to the point that my 401ks are all cleared out, my life insurance policies are all cleared out, my savings is gone, and that's it. That's all the money. And I don't know where I'm going to be living from in a month, basically, is kind of the situation I've been in all summer. And things have always come through to help get me there, but we're at that end. There's no more places that money can come from. So if I don't find a job soon, I'm pretty screwed, which is why I talk about it on the show, because I think it's important for y'all to know what's going on in my life, to know from week to week what's happening. So I started to set the goals. I know that I need a minimum of $500 a month to sustain Militantly Mixed, just the show itself. That has nothing to do with if I were to actually get paid for this work. It has nothing to do with a salary for me yet or anything like that. But $500 a month will pay for all of the logistics of putting the show on. The hosting fees for the actual file you're listening to right now, the website, the email server, the software that I use to do the editing, the software that I use to clean up audio when it's really bad. All of this stuff adds up, including the actual social media marketing time that I take, and sometimes being able to pay to get a little bit of a boost and put myself in people's faces a little bit more, all has a cost. Most of it has a financial cost. Some of it has a financial and a personal labor cost. And so right now I'm just trying to cover the financial costs and not the labor costs to get this done. Because the show has grown so much, more things come with the growth. So it's a thing of where now I actually do need more to sustain the show than I did when I first started the show. Each episode can take between 30 to 40 hours of my time to produce. That is in researching the guests, that's in chatting with the guests, doing the recording, cleaning up the audio, doing the edit, social media marketing aspects of it. There's so many things that go into it that by the end of it, it could take me about 30 to 40 hours to produce one episode of Militantly Mixed. And I do this 4 times over because I have 4 shows on my network. Different levels of interaction though. With Black Radical Queer, I don't have to do as much of the social media work and things like that to promote the show. I produce it and edit it, but Javia does most of her work in that respect. Blurred Comics and By Furious, I do most of that work as well. So it's a lot, and if I could sustain a minimum of $500 on each show, that would take a heavy burden off in terms of the other work that I need to do. But because I'm not quite there yet, I need to have a day job to be able to function and do these shows at the same time. So I end up having 2 full-time jobs at the same time. But I lost my last one, so I gotta find a new one. And that's where I'm at right now. So the sponsorship has done tremendous in keeping the show going, especially through the summer. Having hit the $200 goal this month has been such a relief. And especially because around September and August is when a lot of the annual fees of some of the stuff that I do pops up. And so between the t-shirt sales on Teespring and the sponsorship, y'all really got me through the end of August and beginning of September. And so we're looking forward to try to hit that $300 goal so I can capture some of the other stuff that hasn't been paid for yet. So I really appreciate it. If you would love to sponsor the show, you can go to patreon.com/militantlymix. I did recently reorganize the reward tiers, so there's more things there. I have a few more ideas for reward tiers that are digital based rewards. I just have to work out the logistics of them, and once I do that, I will get those up. But if you're already giving at a level that those would exist, then your reward would be updated to include that reward, so you don't have to wait. I am lucky, I think, than maybe a lot of other podcasters that I do have some great donors at higher reward levels, 50, 30, 25, and $40 levels. But those $1 through $5 is really kind of the bread and butter, folks. The more of those you get, the easier it is to sustain. And given my audience size, if everybody donated at least $1 to the show each month, a lot of the show's expenses will be covered. So don't feel like $1 or anything like that is insignificant. I actually had someone say, I'll donate to you once I can get a little bit more than $1 every month. And I'm over here saying that $1 every month adds up, especially if 100 of you did $1 every month, it would really add up. So if you do listen to the show on a weekly basis and you don't sponsor yet, please consider just at least dropping in $1 a month on the Patreon. It goes a long way, especially when there's a lot more of you doing it. And it helps acknowledge that there's a lot of effort that goes into putting on the show each week. And if the show does give you something, help keep it going. Help me keep it going with your sponsorship. If you don't want to commit to a monthly donation, but you do want to donate to the show, we have another avenue for you. You can go to paypal.me/militantlymixed and drop your coins in there. It all goes into the same ManeHustle Media bank account. So however you donate goes a really long way. And I am looking forward to seeing that thermometer burst at the 300 mark sometime during the month of October. And the other way you can sponsor the show is go to Teespring, Spring.com, and search for Militantly Mixed Store. I have some more Militantly Mixed t-shirts up there, so keep that going. I'll add some more t-shirts over the next couple months. And if you want the Be Your Mixed Ass Self t-shirt that we had in August, the way to get that shirt now, because it's no longer available on the Teespring store, is to donate at the $50 level on Patreon. So the 3 ways to sponsor the show: patreon.com/militantlymixed for a monthly donation, paypal.me/militantlymixed for one time only or whenever the spirit moves you, and the Teespring page to buy a t-shirt. So you actually physically have something to represent your support of the show. Those are the 3 ways to support the show financially, and it really goes a long way. I appreciate it so much. But if you do buy a t-shirt, please post a picture of yourself on Instagram, hashtag it, Be Your Mixed Ass Self, and also tag Militantly Mix account in there so that I can see all your beautiful faces rocking the t-shirts. I actually really get a boost. Some people just emailed some pictures to me, and that was exciting too. I've shared some of the ones I've got permission to share. If you've sent me a shirt and I haven't posted it yet, it's because you didn't answer my question is if I have permission to post it. I want to make sure I have that in writing that you said it was okay before I just go and post the pictures of you willy-nilly. So yeah, do that. Post pictures. Let everybody see you rocking your mixed race t-shirts and yeah. All right. So let's see. Was that all the big news? There is some big news coming, and I want to drop hints, but I can't yet. So I'm gonna try to keep my mouth shut and just say that while I am in this kind of tailspin right now of finance and needing to find work to survive, I am also building ManeHustle Media, and I'm sometime in the year 2020, it is very likely I will have a physical space, a recording space, where I can start doing some of that work, which will help sustain the show as well. So if you're already supporting me now, hopefully some of what your efforts you're doing for me will pay off in 2020 as well. So I'm trying to get to the point that I never have to work for somebody else again, but it takes a long time for that to happen. So in the meantime, I will be looking for day work while also continuing to build ManeHustle Media and by extension Militantly Mixed. And I appreciate your support in making those efforts pay off, those dreams come true. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump on over to Tierra Manuel, the Curlyhead Shinobi. I met Tiara luckily while trying to interview someone else for one of my other shows. I was following Lee Williams, the Black Ninja, on social media, and we were connecting about possibly having him as a guest on Blurred Comics. But when we connected, he was in a really busy season and couldn't make it work, and we were going to meet sometime over the phone in September. But then he happened to be in Los Angeles in August, and I was on my mental health hiatus, but I emailed him and I was like, yo, I see you're in town. Can I just meet up with you in person? And when I did, most of his whole crew was there. And I got a chance to meet a lot of the members of the team, and one member in particular is our guest today. Tierra Manuel is the Curlyhead Shinobi in social media and out in the world. There are a whole clan of Black folks that do martial arts and gaming and anime and cosplay and a whole bunch of really geeky stuff that's right up in my alley as a Black Japanese nerd. And so when I was there to interview Lee, I was wearing my Be Your Mixed Ass Self t-shirt. We got to talking about Tiara being mixed, and then when Tiara got back home to North Carolina, we scheduled a time and recorded her episode for today. Please go to Instagram and follow the Curlyhead Shinobi. The poster of her and the Black Ninja for the graphic novel is so awesome. I just really want to always have someone draw pictures of me as anime characters or chibi characters for the rest of my life. Her poster is dope. Check that out. Also, their videos and things that they have for all of the cosplay that they do, the whole clan, all that stuff is amazing. And I'm going to put links in the show notes to Tiara's Twitch, YouTube, and social media platforms so that you can watch everything that she is out there doing in North Carolina. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump on over to the episode with Tierra Manuel, the Curlyhead Shinobi. All right, so my guest this week, I met it's not on accident. I was scheduled to meet with the Black Ninja Lee Williams for an episode of Blurred Comics on the second week of September, but you happened to be there and I got to meet you and got all excited that there was another mixed race person in the room. So Curlyhead Shinobi, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Thank you. So like she said, my name is Curlyhead Shinobi. That's what I go by. If you want to know my real name, it's Tierra Manuel. I basically I work with the Black Ninja. We do cosplay. We do martial arts together. I do Twitch streams. I'm a gamer. And every other nerd thing you could think of. So that's a little bit about me.
You and I were talking, so when we were when I was setting up and everything at that interview, you and I started talking about the way people look at us as mixed folks, what their assumptions are and everything like that, how you automatically get spoke Spanish too, just because you're ambiguous presenting. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, you look like a mixed Black person, but everybody, I have an eye for mixedness because I'm looking for it, but I'm always looking for a mixed person.
I think we can spot each other out. I think it's everybody else who gets confused.
Spell your own kind and stuff like that. But why don't we get into that a little bit, like what your ethnic origin is and how you're perceived and all that?
Yeah, so I am black and white. My mom is white, my dad's black, and of course there's a little bit other things in between, like Irish on my dad's side. My great grandma's full blood Cherokee Indian, and whatever else there is down the line. I don't know. Everybody just kind of mix and mingle. But the two main ones is black and white.
Mm-hmm.
But the one I most commonly get mistaken for is Hispanic. Like, no matter where I've worked, no matter where I go, people always come to me, talking to me in Spanish. Like, they don't ask me. They just start talking. I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. Especially with, like, at my job. That used to happen all the time. So, and it's funny because they're Hispanic people. So it's like, it's not other people who are mistaking me. It's them.
Yes.
So, like, if a guy, like a Dominican person, like family would come up to me and start talking to me, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were Dominican. Like, they would point out features like, oh, you know, you had the nose and the eyes, I thought.
Right.
I'm like, and then most of it's just the skin color, like just having that tan skin, like,
and curly
it's automatically assume, like, oh, you're Dominican, you're Cuban, Puerto Rican.
Right.
That's like the three main ones that I get. So it's just funny how people think that. And I would think, I'm like, I would think the first thing I would think would be mixed. Like, that's, I mean, curly hair, light skin, like that would be the first one I go for. But everybody thinks Hispanic, and I'm like, wow, okay.
Same with me. Like, I grew up here in Southern California, and when I was younger, I used to have a perm, and I stacked my bangs and stuff, so people thought I was Mexican. But you know, now I let my hair be the way that it is. It's kind of straight and it's kind of curly and it's kind of wavy. But if I'm East Coast, I'm Dominican or Puerto Rican. If I'm West Coast, I'm Mexican or Filipino. And like nothing is actually what people think I am is what I am at all. But you also kind of have you sort of have a Latin last name, and that also
and first name. My first name, Tierra, means world in Spanish, so it's Tierra, and then Manuel, of course, is Spanish. So then if I tell them my name, they're really like, oh, they're nah, like, you're lying. I'm like, oh, I can show you my birth certificate if you like. But it just so happened to do that. And the last name is from my dad. And like I said, he's black. Whether there was some Spanish down the line or like a Spanish slave owner at some point, I have no idea. Like, I really do want to find that type of stuff out. But yes,
it's very
as far as I know.
So you grew up in the South?
Yes. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina. So I've been here my entire life. And I'm 23, so it's a long time to be here.
Up in the South and knowing that there people know how to spot mixed folks in the South, people still jump automatically to you being
absolutely. Like I said, most of them are Hispanic people that do it.
Yeah.
Some I have some white people who will come up and maybe ask or assume. I think they kind of think mixed more than anything, but they still kind of like, most people just stare. Like, that's what I don't get questions. To be honest, I would prefer people to come ask me, like, what my ethnicity is. I don't think it's rude, personally.
Oh, really?
But what I think is rude is when you just stare at me. So everywhere I go, like, I've always been used to people just staring. I think it's just them trying to figure out, like, who I am. Like, even my boyfriend would notice. He's like, I've got, like, a tunnel vision now because I've had to deal with it for so long. So I kind of just ignore it. But he'll notice, like, when we're in the stores, he's like, everybody keeps staring at you. He's like, she keeps staring at you like she's trying to figure out what you are. I'm like, I mean, that's what all people do. They're looking like, what is she? Like, I'm like, human, I think. That's interesting. So I've been told.
Yeah, because for me, like, I'm used to the stares. I'm also used to the people who come up and ask me what I am or tell me I'm exotic looking and stuff like that. And all that pisses me off because it's sort of, in my case, it's my decision to tell you if that's what I want to do or whatever. You know, just because you're curious about me isn't necessarily
doesn't mean I have to.
Like, it's not my obligation, right?
Yeah.
But in your case, because the stares are so obvious and obnoxious, you're just like, just come up to me. Like, you're just exhausted by it. You're like, just come up.
Yeah, I'm just like, you might as well just ask me. Like, you're looking super hard. Like, you might as well just ask. Like, now if somebody comes up rude, like, if they're just like, what are you? Or like something weird, it's like, okay, let's chill out. Like, do you go up to every person asking that question? No.
Right.
You saw me, you saw light skin, curly hair, you just thought like, oh, she must be something outrageous. I'm like, I think nowadays black and white, like, mix is pretty common.
It's pretty
like,
common.
Maybe back in like the 60s or 70s, it's like, oh my God, a mixed person, you know, because of segregation and stuff. But it's so common nowadays. I'm like, why do you still look at me like I'm in a zoo or like I'm this rare find? I'm like, and I see mixed people all the time.
Right. And because honestly, like, if you say I'm mixed, people automatically assume you mean black and white. You have to go into the explanation if there's anything else going on. Like, in my case, I'm Black, Japanese, and white. I don't know the white side of my family though, so I don't identify with them. They're just in there,
Yeah.
And so like I'll tell people I'm mixed, and then I go Black, Japanese, and then I go down my list and explain it afterwards if I'm going to tell people up front what I am. But a lot of the times people go, oh, I would have thought black and white, and it's like, yeah, that's because that's all you think.
Yeah, and see, I can imagine. That's why I was like, it's funny because I think black and white is so common, but I get the opposite of what I actually am. And then like mixed can be like so many different things. Like you can literally have, I don't know, like white and like white and Chinese, or black and Chinese, like Blasian. Like, there's so many different things that you can mix out there, and people just so commonly, I thought, would be like, oh, black and white, that's mixed.
Yeah.
I think technically intermingling any two races is mixed.
Right. So. And that is fair, because a lot of the guests that I have that are mixed with a non-black and white mix will say, a lot of time, like I've had people, Asian mixed folks, say that I didn't even know I could consider myself mixed because the assumption is that if you say mixed, you're talking about black and white, especially here in the States. I think it's fair to think that people think that is what is going on. But what about, so growing up in the South, I imagine there is a certain kind of a stigma or something related to being biracial in the South. In your case, do you see other people like you often? Do you find each other?
I do see a lot of, I think it was more slight when I was a kid, and it was a little bit harder because I didn't see it as much. But I think, like I said, nowadays, I think it's a lot more common. So especially in kids, I see a lot more mixed kids. And if I see anybody mixed, like on social media, as far as in where I'm from, not a whole lot, but like I said, more than when I was a kid. But you can, like you said, you can kind of spot it. I may not know what you are, but I know you have some type of mixed descent. Right. There's more than one thing going on with you, so I'm able to spot it a little more. But yeah, it's like being in the South. It's like, I don't know, people are weird here. People are weird. And then like it's the South, so people automatically like, oh, the South, like, redneck, racist, like sweet tea, like there's all types of like sweet tea is a big thing. I'm like, when I came to California a few weeks ago and I met you for the first time, right? And like I found out like sweet tea is not a thing there, and if it is, it's disgusting. I was like, I couldn't do this. I was like, no, I can't. I grew up on sweet tea.
It's funny too, because there's like my black side of my family is Southern, but they migrated here to Southern California and stuff like that. But so sweet tea was done a certain way growing up, and I knew what it was. But when I go to places like, like McDonald's now thinks that they have a sweet tea, or it's trendy to go to. So not in your average place, but like in these little trendy restaurants and bars or whatever, you can get sweet tea now too. And it's better than just straight up iced tea that you mix sugar in, but it's not
the same. It's not Southern sweet tea.
It's not Southern sweet tea at all.
I swear, like I've never been, like everybody in the South knows how to make sweet tea. And it doesn't matter what descent. Like I go to like Japanese restaurants and they make some bomb sweet tea. Yeah. And they make it bomb. So I'm like, how do you mess this up? It's just sugar, water, and tea. I don't get it.
The problem is because they don't realize you're supposed to put the sugar in hot when it's hot.
Yeah. So then it just kind of sits, or it's not enough. I'm like, maybe you just have to have a palate for it. I don't know. There's probably something in California that I wouldn't know how to make. I wouldn't make it right. Like maybe I have a special beverage or something. So
yeah, that's well, I'll say that even like my experience of when I have gone to the South, actually the only time that I've ever had like a really directed prejudice towards me from a black person, like a hardcore prejudice versus just kind of like you're mixed, you're not really black, that kind of stuff happens here.
Oh man, yeah.
But it's not like this one experience I had when I was in the Atlanta airport. I was with my little Japanese grandma. We were traveling, so we went to a Burger King on a layover, and this little black kid behind the counter goes, "What the hell race are you?" As soon as he saw me, he'd been, and it was the first time a black person ever asked me what I was, because I mean, you see what I look like. I do present yellow, but usually black people know that I'm black. And this is the first time a black person in my whole life had ever asked me if I did not know. Yeah. I mean, usually they'll be like, what are you mixed with? Like they start in with, what are you mixed with?
Yeah, they know it's black and something. Yeah, they're like, but they can't figure out that other something.
This is the first time. What are you? Like, I don't know what the hell. So he's like, what the hell race are you? And I was like, black, Japanese, and white. And he's like, and you tell people? And I was like, yeah, I tell people. And he goes, don't do that. And he was like 16. Like he couldn't have been a day over 16. He was just a kid behind the counter.
And I was a full grown ass adult, like, what? Like, but I was
don't do that.
I was a West Coaster. Like, we could be out a little bit more about it. And I guess from his perspective or where he grew up, you didn't talk about that kind of stuff. So it did make me a little nervous about what it meant to be mixed in the South, even after all these years, because my family all migrated out. They all ended up in California. So I didn't know really what it was like. And I wonder how do you find community or anything like that when you're living as a mixed person in
the South? It would probably be less than, I feel like even just being in California for like that week I was there, and that was like my first time ever there. I can see like all the different races, and like nobody's really looking, nobody's really, from what I've seen judging, like I feel like it's one big mixing pot.
Same reaction while you're walking around California.
Yeah, like I don't think it was the same thing. I mean, people are gonna stay regardless, like, but it wasn't like what I get here. Right. So as far as like community goes, I don't have like a community of like mixed people besides like my sister that I can go to and like have these conversations with or connect with. It's not like that, no. And I connect more with my Black side. Only two people on my white side is my grandma and my mother. That's the only two people I deal with. Right. The other one's not so much. And it was like that, like when I was a kid, we went over there a lot more. But again, like especially being a child and being mixed, I don't think people realize. People are like, oh, well, you're mixed, you can fit in everywhere. And it's like, actually, it's the opposite. Like really you're too Black for the whites and you're too white for the Blacks. Exactly. And then everybody else just doesn't know what you are. So it's like, you don't really feel like you fit in anywhere. So if I mean, except for like my family, I went to my family, like on my Black side, like I was home. Like it didn't matter. Right. They didn't care that my mom was white. Like they loved her. She grew up with them. So it was like, I felt at home. Then I go to the other side and it's like playing like with my little white cousins and stuff. It was like we were getting stared, or it was just like an uneasy feeling. And that's as a kid. And you don't really understand what it is till you get older and you realize like, oh, okay. That's why y'all really looking at me like that.
And it definitely affects you, but you don't really, when you're that young, you don't really understand what it is. What exactly. Is the thing that's making
and then that way. I see why people get like identity crisis and stuff. For a while, I feel like I had it. I've seen like extreme cases where people literally like, I've seen like mixed girls and they grew up with their white side and they just swear up and down like they're white. Their dad can be dark as midnight, and that's just what they were around, and that's what they wanted to associate with. So they kind of just stuck to that instead of accepting both sides. I accept my white side. Like I said, I love my mother and my grandmother, but I just so happen to identify more with my Black side because that's what I grew up with. Yeah. And at the same time, no matter what, I'm still a minority. So it's like,
yeah, just because you're half doesn't mean you can maneuver a space like a white woman. You will always be
exactly. So I can't turn the switch on and off. I can't go into office and say my name is Becky and walk in there like, no, they're gonna look at you and like curly hair, tan skin, big lips. No, not gonna work here. So it was like growing up like that, and like I said, being around them, they weren't necessarily like blatant with it, like in my face, like, ew, you're mixed, like don't play with my kids. Only person that was like that, I had one person that was my Aunt Cynthia's husband, and which was crazy because his best friend was Black, but he just didn't he didn't like interracial. That's what his problem was. He didn't mind having his best friend being Black. He don't care if you're Black, but he didn't like white and Blacks mixing.
So that's that really old idea of like,
yeah, and
like
it was weird. I'm like,
Black, but you can't
best friend is Black. Exactly. Yeah. So like we would go over there and play, and we would run around with my cousins, and he would make us go sit in the room. Like he's like, y'all need to sit down, blah blah blah, but let them keep playing. So like 10-15 minutes go by, and like my Aunt Cynthia comes in, and she's like, why are you guys sitting on the bed? I'm like, well, no, he told us to go sit down. He's like, no, you can go play. Like he just treated us differently, and it was like really, he was the only one that was really blatant about it. Like he was in your face, like, I don't like y'all being here. And he was really old school. So
you're just babies.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just want to play with my cousin. I didn't think anything of when I was a kid. I didn't think that, I go play with my white cousin, I play with my Black cousins. No, I didn't see color. I was like, oh, this is my cousins Tangi and Sadie's, and this is my cousin Day Day. And there was no like difference to me as a kid until I started seeing adults point stuff out, or I got smart enough to hear conversations and listen to like what they would say. And I'm like, am I really that different? Am I really something to talk about or think about? So that's what kind of started. And then of course, as you get into puberty and school, and kids are kids, so kids say stuff and they're like, they don't think about it. They're just like, this is how I feel. So you get to like elementary school and middle school, and kids are asking you what you are. They're picking on you, or you think you're black, don't you? You think you're black? You're not
Man,
black.
you think you're black? That one hurts.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, I am.
My dad's black.
Yeah. Like, you've seen my dad come in here. He's like 6 foot tall, dreads, charcoal. Like, that's my real father. I came out, you know, I came from him, but kids don't, they're like, no, there's no way. Like, they don't get that. And especially like, depending on how they're raised, they don't see that. And then like, again, some people are still, they don't do the interracial thing. So if they're not used to that, and then they see someone like you, it's like, what? I seen you come in here with your mom and she was white. Mm-hmm. Then you said that's your dad. That don't make sense. And it's like, you know, like as a kid, how do you explain it to other kids? And it's like, it starts making you question yourself, and you start trying to figure out like, well, what am I really? And like I said, there was this like isolation of not belonging anywhere. People get this misconception that because you're mixed, you can fit in anywhere. And it's like, it's the absolute opposite. Since I was a kid, it's always been, you don't fit in anywhere. Like I said, you're too black to be white, you're too white to be black. But as I've gotten older, it's like, stuff like that I don't even think about anymore. Like I said, middle school, it was kind of hard because, like I said, you're just getting to puberty, you're just trying to find yourself, and you don't really know what to do. Sometimes you get ashamed, like, oh, like, well, when I'm around, like, my black, you know, peers, and they know I have a white mom, they kind of treat me weird, and maybe I should just, you know, not accept that side, or like, what do I do? But then they don't accept me because I'm not fully black. So am I just not black? Like, it's so, it's like a inside internal struggle. Yeah, and you start questioning yourself and questioning life, and like, what the heck am I? What do I do with myself? Where do I go? Like, I start questioning myself. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, like when you think you're just like a person, and then people start making it something else, then that makes you think like, well, am I not just a person? Like, am I not black and white? Can I not be both? Do I have to pick a side? Like, and like I said, I identify more with my black side, but I'm never ashamed to say I'm black and white. Like, I'm never ashamed of any part of me. So as a kid, it was different. Now it's like, I'm more like, this is what I am. Like I said, people look at you now like, oh, you're so exotic and you're so this and that. And then there's like this battle between light skin and dark skin. And really the battle is not even with us. It's with social media and society. So like when I see posts and people are like, oh, light skinned people are better, I'm like, that's not true. Like, all skin colors are beautiful. And then people get mad at light skinned people or mixed people because they're like, oh, well, now everybody thinks mixed people are
look better.
Yeah, that was the thing. You look better because you're light skinned. I'm like, and I've had people like say stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't think these things at all. Like, I love dark skinned people. I love people of any shade. Yeah, and it's like now the blame is on us when it's like, I didn't choose that somebody's personal opinion is light skin is better, or like, I love you, chocolate man. My boyfriend's chocolate. Like, I have no issues with that. It's the social media that does it. So then when they put it out there, then dark skin people see like, oh, now they just look at every light skin person like, oh, well, you just think you're better because you're light skin. Oh, why? Because society say you're supposed to be better. Like, I didn't say that. For me, because you saw a post on Facebook, I didn't post it.
Right. Yeah, I had the crisis, and when I was a teenager, in that, like, I grew up in a black neighborhood by, you know, I went to a black church, and my friends and family were all black. My dad was black, and I was this yellowish, kind of like looking like a black person, you know, walking around. And I felt like I did not feel more beautiful because I was lighter. In fact, I felt uglier because I wasn't, because the people around me that I thought were beautiful were darker skin. So for me, the measure of beauty was dark skin. And that was my crisis to deal with with my identity, is, you know, not being dark enough. How do I get to be as black as how do people get to see me as a black person when I'm as black as I am on the inside? You know, like, you know, I'm very militant about things and stuff like that. I grew up in the hood. Like, I have a very specific kind of blackness that doesn't get seen because of the way I present. And in your case, you being maybe so visibly more obviously black than I am, you know, in that case, the fact that you are also dealing with the same type of reaction, like that people are reacting to you very similar to how they react to me, and you and I don't look like we have the same race, even though we share 2 of 3 of the things we're mixed with.
Exactly.
You know, it's a weird thing to try to wrap your head around, and that you could be living in these different places. And my issue of being too light to feel beautiful and someone else's issue to be being light and feeling more beautiful is very weird. We cannot win if we're gonna approach it with what other people think about
Exactly. And of course there's those apples in the bunch, that there are people who are cocky or think they're better because they're light skinned, because that's how society creates it. So then people start thinking like how white people just think they're this dominant race and they rule the world, and it's like, no, you don't. Actually there's less of you than there are of minorities.
If we all band together, absolutely.
Exactly. So I'm like, the numbers are unmatched, but I'm like, but that's what they just have this idea of. So the same thing with light skinned people, the world's telling them like, oh, you're better because you're light skinned. And you have people like me and you who are like, no, that's not true, like all races are beautiful. And then you have the other light skinned people who are like, oh, absolutely, my skin is better than yours, and I'm tan.
That's actually why I dropped out of some of the, so when I was trying to get more people to listen to the show and maybe come on the show, I was adding all these Facebook mixed race groups, and there was some very light skin centric groups where they were just basically hating on anybody darker than, anybody who could pass the paper bag test. Those were the people that were ugly in these groups. And I just couldn't abide by it. Like, I'm put in my comments to be like, look, we're mixed. We already deal with enough struggle. We don't need to be internally beating each other up because of some shit we don't have any control over. I can't control that I turned out the color that I did, because if I did, if I could have picked, I would have been browner, like that kind of stuff. And I couldn't stick in them. I couldn't stay in those groups that are very light skin centric, just because it was it seemed so hateful, and like they were regurgitating all of the things that we hear in white supremacy. Whereas there's other mixed race groups on Facebook and stuff that are about like, oh my gosh, they put blue eyes with red hair on brown skin, like that's awesome. Or like everybody has a thing where they can actually, in these groups that I'm in now, they actually celebrate the different ways that we come out. I mean, even within your own family, you don't look the same, some of us. So it's nice to be able to celebrate that and not isolate the ones that came out a certain way.
Exactly. And everybody's, there's so many different shades. It's crazy and it's beautiful. Like my boyfriend's mom, you would look at her and you would think she was either like Blasian or some type of Asian descent, because that's the face she has. Like she literally has a face that looks like she could be Asian. But her parents are both brown skinned Black people. Like, and she is about as light as me, and it is crazy. But both her parents are Black. And sometimes that's just how it happens. Like it just comes out. And my cousin, he has a kid, and his baby's mom they're both Black. And his son is light, maybe a little bit darker than me, and has curly hair. And it's crazy, especially when he first came out, but he's darkened up a little bit, but he's still lighter. Like he's way lighter, and it's crazy. And I'm like, you never know what color you're gonna come out as. Like,
I really don't. I mean, my full brother and I don't look like we're the same race necessarily. I actually resemble closer one of my cousins on my dad's side than I do my own full brother. And then I have half siblings. Like I have a half sibling that looks like a white version of me. Green eyes, blonde hair. It's a trip. But you don't know. So it's to even put that on us as an extra level of something that we need to combat as mixed race people is ridiculous. We got
you're supposed to be a certain way, you're supposed to look a certain way, or people just assume they have you figured out because they look at you like, oh, you're mixed, you must have had everything handed to you. I'm like, that has nothing to do with like how my life passed. Like you said, like I grew up in the ghetto. That's how we did. We did what we had to do. Eventually my mom was able, when I got to high school, we were able to get to a nicer neighborhood, and I was able to go to a nicer school. But before that, I like being from here, anybody who knows like North Carolina or Greensboro, like being on the east side, straight ghetto. And that's where I grew up at. But it was no problem. That's where I was. And my mom decided this is where we have to be for now. And she got us to a better place. And I, just because I don't walk around like, I mean, don't get me wrong, my hood can come out when it need to.
Same.
But I know how to walk around and present myself though when I need to. That's how I tell you, I'm like, don't let it come out. Don't let it fool you. But if I need to walk around and present myself in a professional manner, then that's what I do. Just because I don't, when I'm in a closed environment at home around my friends, you get around certain people, then it starts coming out a little more, and you guys are acting up or whatever. But when I go out, like I know how I should act in public. I know how I should act when I go to a job interview. Like, that doesn't necessarily come from being Black or white. That just comes from how I was raised and being like as a person. But it's not acting Black. It's not acting white. Like, I'm just
I
being a
mean,
person.
we are kind of trained to code switch probably a little quicker as mixed folks because we see the difference the way our mom behaves versus the way our dad behaves. Like I think we do have a
Right.
little bit of that a little earlier probably than
Mm-hmm.
some of our other counterparts because I don't know what I'm doing it all the time. I mean, I do sometimes. I actively know what I'm doing it, and I've described it on this show before as the voice that you hear me speaking now is sort of my code switch because I left the ghetto and I dropped my accent. It took me like 3 years for it to fully be gone, but you put me in around people talking that way and I'm back. Give me a few minutes and I'm back.
Yeah.
Um, but I've now maneuvered, say, a corporate space or professional space long enough that this is the voice that I talk with. And this is a voice I got because I was working at a place, like it's the
Right.
accent that I created through that. So this is my code switch. But I guess I'm living with it more than my old accent. Also, because I don't hear my old accent as often now that I live where I live. So, do you on your Black side of your family? You said that they were all very welcoming, and they also welcomed your mom in. Did they have any kind of colorism going on in there? They never did you're too light or even making fun of the darker skin relatives or anything like that. It was pretty open.
No, yeah. I mean, besides the normal like family roasts, there was nothing like
Yeah.
there was nothing malicious. Like there was nothing like, oh no, you guys are too light skinned or well, y'all are light. Why are these cousins so dark skinned? Like it was never that on my Black side. Like I said, they would pick with us and stuff, but it was sincere picking. It was like, you family, I'm roasting you. Like it wasn't like other people when they look at you.
They're gonna
like
make fun of you for having a big head and a wonky knee or some shit like that.
Absolutely. So I've always had a big forehead, so that was my thing. I had a big forehead.
Same.
And
I do. That's why
I got called five heads.
5 heads. That's like, the same thing.
So it was like that. But I mean, like I said, that's just normal family picking. It wasn't nothing personal.
Right.
So, but other than that, no, they never. Like I said, my mom grew up over there. Like she literally at my granny's house. That's where she stayed most of the time. Like when her and my dad were together, she lived there with them. She always grew up around them. They all went to the same school. Then she met my dad and they got together. So she was always around them. My mom was one of those like white people who she hung with more Black people than anything. Right. So I think that can be different too, like because that's how my mom was. But then you might have like a preppy white mom, who grew up in the suburbs. My mom was the opposite. She didn't. She grew up in the ghetto. She grew up with Black people. She identified more Black people, and she loved Black people. Like she married one, so that was her. It was that's why it was different being around her as a white mom, because I didn't really see her as white until people pointed it out. Because my mom didn't act like a normal white lady, I guess. What normal would be. She was like, oh my goodness, my mom was not like that. She did not play. She had a Black soul. She does have a Black soul. I'm saying was like past tense. She does. So I think that could play a factor too. That was different. So she grew up around them. They loved her. Then she had us. They loved us. Like as long as my dad was happy and all that, like as far as I know, there was never any doubt like, oh man, our nephew, he's marrying a white lady. Oh, Lord, like as far as I knew, I'm sure like internally someone in the family probably thought a little bit like, let's see how this is gonna work out. But once they met my mom and got used to her and us, like there was never I never felt different when I was hanging with my cousins on my Black side.
And I think that's the reason why a lot of us do identify with our Blacker side. I mean, some of us don't, but I think a lot of us do because of the more welcoming that we get. Like Black folks, especially here in the States, Black folks here in the States are kind of used to the possibility that you might have some white in you from far back. Like we're kind of more used to it, so we're more accepting of we did internalize as a community the one drop rule, things like that. They made it up, but we took it on and stuff like that. So I do always usually feel a lot more welcomed around Black folks. But similar to you, my mom's the Japanese and white one, but she has a 30 plus year long career doing Black hair exclusively. And she always dates Black men. And, we're always in Black circles because of my mom. Whereas my dad was more of like a trying to not be black guy, like he was.
And your dad was Black, correct?
Yeah, my dad was Black.
That's hilarious. That's exactly how my dad was.
Really?
Like my dad was 6 foot something, dreads. Like he looked like what would be like,
black
oh,
as
a
fuck
typical
dude.
black guy in the hood. My
Right.
mom used to tell me stories of my dad. Like, she was like, you wanna know how I met your dad? She was like, he was in the skating ring with glow sticks in his shoes and like he was in a rave or something. This was this black guy. And then my mom was the white girl, like, what are you doing? Like, she didn't do that stuff. So she, what you would say would be acting black. And my dad, he acts white, like he does all the what white people would do type stuff.
My parents. That's hilarious.
And it was funny, and like I didn't think of it back then. It's like, oh, you know, my mom acts black and my dad acts white, but they're the opposite races. Like, I'm like, oh, but that's how my dad acts. You know, he kind of acts weird and he does this type of stuff, and my mom don't do that stuff. And then people like start pointing it out, like, your mom act black.
Well, my mom's the one who named me. So, like, my dad's name is Brad because his mom's British. So he's got like a white British Caucasian name. And my mom is Japanese, and she called me Charmaine Latrice. And it is not spelt the way you expect Latrice to be spelt, and neither is Charmaine. And so, like, it was my Japanese mom that was really trying to blackify me as much as possible. And then it kind of played out that way. Like, my brother has a white name. I have a black or perceived white name and a perceived black name, and we behave accordingly. I'm more attached to the black side, and my brother's more attached, I guess, with the white side. Oh, that's funny. I wonder if there's something to that too, where like it's probably dangerous territory to be walking down, but like where a black dude who is like trying to not be the stereotypical black or whatever he's trying to de-blackify himself, that he might go towards, because I feel like that was the case with my dad, because he always sought out women that were white or white looking, and both of his my mom and my half siblings moms were mixed white. Both of them were like white and Mexican or white and Japanese, something like that. So we're like kind of white looking, but different things. And yeah, my mom to this day, I think, is still very black acting,
That's what my mom was too. And it's funny because like my mom works at home. She does like customer service. So it's so funny to see her like switch up. Like she gets like that.
Between being a black voice and
hi, how are you? How may I take your call? And then like she'll mute the phone and be like, if you don't sit down somewhere, go off. I'm like, who are you? I'm like, you acting so fake on the phone. It's so funny to see her switch though. Like when she has her customer service voice, and then when she gets normal, like she'll snap. It's hilarious.
That's funny. Before we get too far out though, I kind of want to get into your interest in martial arts and when that started for you and how you've come as far as you have diving into more Asian culture and interests.
Right. Well, I started doing martial arts when I met my boyfriend. So it was about 3 years ago. He's actually a martial arts instructor. So when I met him, I didn't know what he did at first. Like, we just met, and then I found out that he taught martial arts. And so I went to one of his classes, and I really enjoyed like seeing what he did, and the fact that he was so passionate about it. I'm like, wow, like this is something I want to try. So I'm like one of like the least athletic people ever. Like all I did before I met him was play video games and like watch TV and stuff. Like I didn't do anything athletic. So doing that was something really outside of my comfort zone. But the fact that I liked seeing him do it so much, it was something I wanted to try. And then once I started doing it, I loved it. And aside from just like the confidence of doing it, feeling like you can protect yourself, just accomplishing things, like we do things that are for self-defense and stuff like that too. Everything has application, even our forms and our katas. But it's just like that confidence and that achievement of knowing you did something. And like I said, feel like you can protect yourself, and it feels really good. And on top of that, it builds a sense of community. Like I have met so many people just doing martial arts, like going to seminars, going to tournaments, just participating in stuff or finding groups online. Like that's really kind of how we met Lee, the Black Ninja, was because he did martial arts, and then we kind of met, and then now we have like this whole group thing going, and it's amazing. But that's something we did through the community of martial arts, and it's awesome. So doing that, and now really taking that and putting it together with the content we create on social media, like our videos, we do cosplay. Now we take our martial arts skills and put that with the cosplay, and then we're able to actually do what these anime characters do. So it's something really amazing that we all create together. And like I said, it's just a sense of community, and I love it. And the nerd in me it just it added more to
like
it.
it all started to make sense once you clicked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you feel like you're a part of this group that like not a lot of people get, and it's like, wow, this is great. It fueled me really, like doing it. It just fueled me to want to do more.
Yeah. I will say, I only spent I was with you guys for maybe like 2 hours or something that day, and just the little time that I was with y'all, you really did feel like a family. Y'all stayed busy. I mean, I'm interviewing Lee, and your boyfriend was practicing form to the side of it, like I could see him from the peripheral view, you know, and I could feel how connected you all were, and that you had a really good support system within all the things that you guys were geeked for and the work that you put in. I mean, I've been following Lee for a while on social media, and so I have been seeing videos of all of you before, but getting to chance to actually meet you all in person, you know, got a stronger connection. So I was excited to see that. But you were also an anime nerd before you got involved in this, or did that come from the martial arts as well?
Oh no, yeah, that's a lifelong
thing.
Lifelong thing of mine. Yeah.
So were you
I was in elementary
weird,
school,
I guess, to other kids, because like not only were you mixed, but you were also into anime and stuff like that. Did people know that you were like this when you were growing up?
Yes, and that was also a thing that added to it. Was like, not only was I mixed, but I was into like anime and Japanese art and stuff like that. So I was the person in 5th grade like drawing ninjas on my paper, and people and a lot, like, to me, for the most part, I didn't really care. Like, I loved doing that stuff. I loved watching anime. I loved playing video games. They were both like an escape for me. So I enjoyed doing that. But, you know, like I said, growing up in a Black neighborhood, already being looked at different because you're a mix, and now you're just weird. And like I used to carry like these weird pocketbooks. Like my aunt, every time she would travel somewhere, she would get me a purse from somewhere. So I had like a Minnie Mouse. It was like the purse was shaped like Minnie Mouse's head, and it was like this little, you know, crossbody pocketbook. I used to love it. I had one that had like comic stuff on it, and she would just she knew I liked that stuff, so she would get me that everywhere she went, and I carried it. And people were like, oh, that's weird. Like, so between that and what I watched, and like I said, I just drew ninjas on my paper and doing stuff like that.
Right.
It added to me being weird, and
a different person. Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but like I said, people looked at me different. So I got bullied a lot when I was younger because I was like super skinny. I had big feet. I was mixed. People didn't know how to handle that. Yeah. I liked anime. I carried weird pocketbooks. I was like the smart kid. Like, my mom didn't play when it came to grades. So I was always the person in class asking questions. I was spelling bee champ. I enjoyed grammar and stuff. I loved math. Like, we had a contest to see who could memorize the most numbers after the decimal for the sign of pi. And I memorized the most out of everybody. I think it was like 25, 26, something like that.
Nice.
And I just studied it. I liked challenging myself, stuff like that. But that also made me stick out, because most people in my class, is like, we were in a bad neighborhood, so most kids, they didn't care. They weren't really doing much, like playing around, tossing stuff in the back of class. Like, and I was a person, one, I knew my mom didn't play, and two, I actually enjoyed learning. So people always looked at me for that, like that. Like, I thought I was better, or, you know, you just like this nerdy little kid, or you just think you're so smart. So, and like I said, and I was scrawny. Like, I had a lot of kids around me were, especially the girls, they were like really developed. I was a late bloomer. So I had like no chest, no butt, no nothing. Like, so 6th, 7th grade, like, I was flat as a pancake, nerdy as can be, like, and it just added to the all-time mystery of everybody looking at me like, oh my goodness, this girl.
But it clicks into place now. You found your tribe with the being able to incorporate your nerdery into
now it's so cool to be a nerd. It's now you feel like everybody feel like they're cool, and I'm like, where are these, like, all the friends I have now? Man, I'm like, where was y'all at when I needed y'all? Like, I didn't have none of these people. The people I was around, people thought that was the weirdest thing. Yeah. Now, like, my whole group of friends, like, we do all that stuff. And you tell people, and they're like, oh, man, you watch anime too? You play video games? And it's so cool to do that now. And it's like the community I found through playing games and social media and going to cons and stuff is so awesome to see, not only more nerds, but more Black nerds. And just seeing people of color, like, oh yeah, I love that.
Me and my co-host on Blurred Comics, he and I grew up together. I used to play at his house because his mom had a daycare, so she used to watch me and my brother. He and I never knew we were into nerdy shit. You didn't talk about that stuff. You kept it to yourself. So like
Right.
people would assume, like, people were okay with me watching anime because they knew I was Japanese, but so I wasn't really being a nerd in that case to them. I was just being Japanese. But reading comics and all that other kind of stuff, that wasn't something we talked about. So he and I have this show together now, but we've known each other over 25 years and never knew the other one was a nerd until like 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
You know, like, we're only coming like out of the closet about some of this stuff. And really it's just because social media allows us to do it now, and it is a little bit cooler to be a nerd. But you could grow, like I'm saying, we grew up together and we didn't know about each other's things.
Yeah, there was probably some closeted nerds that went to my school who didn't want nobody to know because, you know, you wasn't tough if you was a nerd, or you wasn't cool if you wasn't, you know, if you liked that stuff. So
or probably even saw how you were being treated because you were a little bit more obvious about your pocketbooks and your drawings and things like that. So, you know, they're like, well, I don't want to be treated like she's getting treated.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. All right. But we are coming a little bit close to the end of the show. So I do like to always ask my guests, because we do talk about trauma and, you know, racism and things like that we deal with growing up or whatever as mixed folks. But what do you love most about being mixed?
Let's see. I enjoy being that bridge, and I enjoy being being able to connect to multiple races and having that, like, getting to see kind of both sides. Like, you know, I've seen the white side, I've seen the black side, to go through those hardships and kind of like help people understand, like, hey, like, we can all do this together. Like, my mom and dad can get together, you know, not saying that black people got to make white people, but we can all like get along. Yeah. So stuff like being that bridge and just being different, like being younger, being different was kind of hard because it's like you didn't feel like you belonged, but now I just like I enjoy being something that I feel like is different, or just being me. Like I feel like it's interesting. It's an interesting journey that a lot of people don't understand, and I'm glad that there's things like this podcast and other things that I see on social media where people are bringing it to the light, because like I said, people have their assumptions of mixed people or what it is, or, you know, mixing races or killing off other races. Like, I just want to like stop all like the misconception between being mixed and being a nerd, being mixed, being a nerd, and being a woman. Like a woman who likes video games, a woman who likes comic books, like, and doing that and being mixed and being a woman. Like, when you put all three of those things together, it's like a triple threat. People are like, oh, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, look at what y'all are doing. When the poster popped up it's on Instagram, and I'll put a link to it, but the Curlyhead Shinobi poster popped up with you and Lee. It's just like, I mean, I'm a Black and Japanese kid, so this is my fantasy world, like combining Blackness with samurai culture and ninja culture and things like that. Like that, I mean, is so exciting for me to see. But I didn't get things like that. There wasn't even Afro samurai or anything like that when I was growing up. We weren't doing that. They weren't doing that kind of stuff or whatever. Right. So to see that, like, you have found you've found this joy in this thing, and you're translating that thing into content so that other people get to see it and experience it and have fun with it as well. Like that, it's really meaningful. And I'm glad that you're out there doing that. Both representing as a woman who geeks and as a mixed race woman, you know, all of the commas and things like that you add to it. I'm really glad. I'm really glad that when I got to interview Lee, you all were there too, because
right. I believe, you know, I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason.
It opened up a lot of opportunity for more conversation between us, and I just really enjoy it. But why don't you tell everybody how to find you? And like I said, I am going to put a link in the show notes to your Instagram and all that kind of stuff, but let everybody know how they can find you on social media.
Right. So you can find me on Facebook. It's just my name, Tierra Manuel. It's Tierra, last name Manuel, Manuel. I think my profile picture is currently the poster she discussed with me and Lee dressed in the Akatsuki robes. So if you see that, that's me. For my Instagram, it's at curlyhead_shinobi. So head, HEAD, curlyhead_shinobi. You can follow me on Twitch. I just got into streaming, so it's going to be Curlyhead Shinobi, all one word, no underscore. And then you can follow my YouTube. It's going to also be Curlyhead Shinobi. And we just released a video last week. It was a bleach visual for those who haven't seen it yet. So
I got to see it before it was launched. Before it had music and everything like that. It was awesome.
Right. So now it's been edited and got the music and the special effects. So that's out. When you go on my Instagram page, you'll see our past ones. Like we have an Akatsuki video for MomoCon. The bleach video was when we went to BlurredCon. And then we're coming up this end of October. We're going to AWA, Anime Week in Atlanta. So we'll be there. We'll kind of be posting like updates of what we're going to group cosplay as and, you know, where we're going to be at and stuff like that. But so that should be fun. Now, I think AWA is October 31st through November 2nd. Our group is called KSS. It's Kiro Shinobi Squad. Kiro means Black in Japanese. So we're hoping soon maybe we'll probably make a page specifically for our group.
Yeah.
But
well, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm a little bit jealous of you guys' group because you're so awesome and it was fun to be around you. But also I just love watching what you're doing, and I will keep sharing and promoting it as well on my side just because I enjoy it so much and I don't want it to stop. But thank you so much for coming on. Militantly Mixed is a ManeHustle media podcast, produced and hosted by me, Charmaine Fury. Music is by David Bogan the One. You can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Militantly Mixed. If you'd like to become a sponsor of Militantly Mixed, please go to patreon.com/militantlymixed for monthly sponsorship or paypal.me/militantlymixed for a one-time only donation. And if you like what you hear on Militantly Mixed, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to be your mixed-ass self. ManeHustle Media. Turn your side hustle into your main hustle.